Hi, welcome to the wonderful world of handball. We've had a few editions of this, and what we're going to try and do today is to try and share some of the pleasures and joy of this wonderful game. As I mentioned last time, you have to be in really great shape to play this game. It's now mid-October down here at Coney Island, and even though my second home here is only 300 feet by 200 feet by 100 feet, the beauty of the place is this. We play handball here all year long, and we have a group of fellas, maybe 20 or 30, ranging from age 60 to 90 years old, that play handball on these very courts. It's only a short drop away from the ocean over there, and if you move west, you'll see Nathan's, the parachute jump, and all these wonderful landmarks that have made Coney Island such a great place to be. The beauty of this place is, I call it a handball Shangri-La, is because these elderly gentlemen come down here, they play a couple of games, they get a little bit of a workout, but more importantly, they're getting fresh air, and then the most important part of it is, after the game is over, they shoot the breeze with their buddies, and before you know it, the years pass by, and they find out that they're septuagenarians, octogenarians, and nonagenarians. I wish I knew what all of that stuff meant, but I have to say it because my good friend Matthew Paris is here, and he's been very helpful in these handball proceedings. As you probably remember, last time I showed you how to throw the ball to the wall. That's very important because hitting it is an extension of throwing the ball. Then the technique of moving toward the ball like that, not meeting the ball with a certain force, but just using the energy in the ball to redirect it. Then we went on to show different types of serves, the overhand serve, and then the sidearm serve. Always keep in mind you have to practice with your left hand too if you're a right-hander, because your opponent isn't going to hit it to your strength, he's going to hit it to your weakness. Now all the great champions that I've ever known, and I've been in this game for over 50 years, all the great champions weren't from a common mold. They all had different styles, they used different techniques. Some had great serves, some had great pair shots, some had great kill shots, some had great lift shots. In my definition of a champion, though, since you're going to meet more and more of those diverse styles as you go on in this game, it's going to be very important that you develop a style in order to counter the strength of your opponent. Many times in your local park, you may be the kingpin there. You may have a powerful shot, and you hit the ball so hard that your opponents can't do anything against you, and you wind up winning. Then you come to the Nationals, and thinking that you're going to use that wonderful resource of power, you get on the court with some man who can hop the ball both ways. A hop being that the ball hits the ground and shoots in different directions. Your power is useless. Or you'll get another expert who'll hit the ball high, put a little bit of spin on it, which means that he'll upset your timing, and then your power again is worthless. So you go back to your court, home court, with your tail between your legs saying, well, it must have been just one of those days. It wasn't one of those days. This game requires two-handed skill. It requires hand-eye control with either hand. Imagine you running laterally with a ball moving out of your reach at perhaps 90 miles an hour. You know the beauty of a human being being able to go after that ball, catch up to it, and still use his brain to do something startling with the shot, to put his opponent off balance, or to kill the shot while on the run. That's where the glory of this wonderful game comes in. Now the champions I've seen, Joe Playtack and Vic Hershkowitz and Steve Sandler, Al Torres, and my two wonderful brothers, Oscar and Carl, they all added a new dimension to the game. When my brother Roscoe was a one-wall champion, went into four-wall, he mesmerized the four-wall competition because he brought the fly kill into the four-wall game. That means taking the ball before it hits the floor and just rolling it out to end the volley in his favor. Now, what does all this mean? Why would you listen to a person like me? I told you I was in this game for 50 years. I've not only been a player, but I've been an administrator, a referee. I put on handball clinics for the kids now. I've observed all the great players all around the country, one-wall, three-wall, and four-wall. My credentials are these. I'm a member of the Hall of Fame. There's only 22 players in that Hall of Fame since 1919 when the first championship was held. I was the first person to win the singles champion at the young age of 19, and then years later, 22 years later, became the oldest person to win the singles champion against guys 20 years younger than I. What did that mean? It meant that I happened to be in shape. It meant that I learned from all the years of competition, singles and doubles and the like. But when I tell you about what's going to happen today in front of your very eyes, we're going to discuss strategy. And we're not going to limit it to one wall. We're going to tell you more also about four wall and the different skills involved. Picture this. Over here we have a one wall court. That's just one surface. The ball is hit more or less straight ahead and at an angle. But in four wall, you're inside a room and you're playing with 6 surfaces, namely the 4 walls, the ceiling, and the floor. And this ball goes spinning around in various ways. That's where the great degree of skill is required in order to play the 4 wall game. So, I'm going to back up. My friend Matthew is going to show me hitting a couple of shots so far as one wall strategy is concerned. We'll talk about single strategy, double strategy, and then we'll go to 4 wall and see whether or not we can give you some additional information so ultimately you will get all the great pleasure and treasure out of this wonderful game that keeps you in shape, keeps you alert, gives you the sense of competition. It's 1-on-1 in singles, 2-on-2 in doubles. In doubles, you have to have teamwork, which is essential to our way of life. And that's one of the reasons I'm wearing this red, white, and blue. I plan to make handball part of our way of life. So I'm going to back up now, show you a couple of strategic shots, and then we're going to move on to the next phase. Recall, first you have to warm up correctly, and that means throwing the ball correctly. After you master that, what you want to do is move the ball back to the wall using the energy in the ball rather than your energy. So observe. See that? The ball is being moved back to the wall. Now more importantly, I want you to watch my feet. If your feet aren't in the correct position, you'll never be able to hit the ball properly. It's like a dance step, like Fred Astaire in motion. Now just watch what happens every time I hit that ball. See that? I'm watching it. See that? After a while, if you keep practicing this technique, you'll get a sense of grace and agility. It's an actual symphony in athletics. Getting to the strategy. One is the overhand serve. I mentioned to you, you control the ball with the left hand. It must be in strict control. It must rise straight up. And then you use the overhand stroke to move the ball high. You'll have some shots down the right line. Behind you over here to your opponent's opposite hand, his weaker hand, assuming he's a right-hander. And you use these different techniques from different positions on the court. You may start your serve here, or you may start your serve here. Then you can direct it up the line, you can direct it cross-court with all the variations. That's the strategy of one wall. That's the strategy of one wall singles. In doubles, you have to have a certain sense of teamwork now. You have a partner. You're not thinking for yourself now. You must think as a team. Many times national singles champions decided to get into the doubles field and they played like they were still playing singles. You have to have communication. You have to have some basic strategy. If you're playing 2 right-handers, you hit it to the weaker hand of the man on this side. If you put it right up in that spot, then the 2 players will converge and they'll have trouble trying to return that ball. But always remember, there's a basic rule in doubles. Everything in the center is the shot of the man on the left unless he says yours. Too many times we see when the game gets crucial, the point game, a ball goes right to the center, they converge, and then neither man hits it thinking the other has it. Voice communication is very important. The third principle you should know about doubles is this. If your partner misses a shot, don't belittle him, don't yell at him. You must encourage him. Just say, forget about it, let's go on, let's beat that team. If you belittle your partner, your opponents will take that as something extra for them. Look, they're demoralized, now we will move on and score even more points. So these are the little things that you should know about single strategy, double strategy. Now I promised you something else. I've gotten a lot of cards, a lot of letters, a lot of commentary about what are you talking about one wall for? There's a big world out there called four wall. Well, if you bear with me now, I'll show you a little strategy about the four wall. Visualize for a moment that you're in a room. You can see one of the walls there, but picture yourself with side walls, a back wall, a ceiling. Keep all those things in mind. In singles, basically the strategy is the same of one wall. You want to hit the ball where your opponent isn't. Sometimes it may be just over this line and it'll move into the side wall. Sometimes it'll be front wall where it hits off the other side wall, keeping them off balance. Sometimes it'll be a shot behind your back, right to the man's left hand over there on the back wall where his weakness is, and they always have trouble with that. Another shot may be a ceiling ball. Hit to the center, it bounces somewhere in the middle, and then it loops into that back corner. I'm going to show you by some of the charts later what I'm talking about now, but I want you to get the basic idea in mind. First, you have to be in great shape. Second, you have to know what the ball can do under these conditions. You have to actually have a course in physics, knowing what this ball will do if it's hit at a straight angle into a wall and what the result will be. Sometimes you think if you throw a ball or hit a ball into one wall and it hits the side, it'll come straight out. That's not true. Because if you hit the ball with spin like this, or you hit the ball with top spin like this, it'll do exactly the reverse of what you expect. And that's part of the beauty of this game. That's where in four-wall singles, for instance, you may stand right here, you'll put a top spin on the ball as you're serving it, it'll go behind your back, your opponent will think it's going into the side wall, and it straightens out, paralleling that side wall. So these are the strategies I promised you about four wall. Now, if Matthew will just move the camera slightly to this wall, I'll give you a simple technique of how to improve your back wall game. Most times people think that you just bounce the ball off the back wall and you continue to hit it. That's not true. What you want to do first off is just take the ball, bounce it off the floor, and as it hits the back and comes forward, you come forward with your hand and just catch it. I'll show you what I mean. It bounces and you just catch it. It bounces and you just catch it. Bounce it and so on. If you practice that and you're able to catch it 8 out of 10 times like this, the next time on the 11th shot, as the ball comes forward, instead of catching it, you'll go underneath the ball and just move it straight ahead. For instance, here it comes, and then you just go like that. All right? Could you return that ball for me? Thank you. So that's a mini lesson in how to practice your four-wall, back wall shot. Remember what I said? It bounces and you must catch it. Bounce it and catch it. Now when you master that, the next step is not to move the ball from the back wall to the front wall, because that's about 38 feet. The dimensions of the court is 20 by 40. You're standing about 2 feet from the back. Now you have to move that ball 38 feet. I don't want you to do that. The next lesson is to go and hit the ball off the side walls. So as you throw the ball to this side wall and it comes off that back, you just keep this type of motion going. After you do it with your right hand, you do exactly the same thing with your left hand, through the side walls. And after you master that technique off to the back wall, through this practice, then you come back to the back wall, and only now do you try that particular shot. It works with your right hand, the same thing with your left hand. First you practice catching it like this, and you just this simple exercise as many times as you can, and then the next time you just hit it like that, all right? I have the ball. What we're going to do now, I'll show you some of the charts that I've prepared. And because words are words and a little bit of action on the court is just a little bit of action on the court. If Noah will hand me that envelope over there, I'll show you the next phase of what I'm talking about, all right? Now you hold this ball. This is Noah. This is the son of this fine gentleman over here. And that pen, please. Noah, may I have the dark pen?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to try and put this in focus for you now. And this will probably be a very nice record for you as you go on. First, I promised you that we were going to talk about one-wall single strategy. So what I've done here is drawn a picture of the court, okay? This line here is the short line. This little circle here is the person that's serving. This R over here behind the long line is the receiver. In order to play this game, this person, the server, has to put the ball in play. He does so by first hitting the front wall, and then that ball must rebound within the confines of this second box over here called the receiving zone. If he hits it outside the box, he will lose his serve. If he fails to put it over the short line on the first attempt, he has a fault. If he has 2 faults, he loses the serve. Now, if he is successful and he puts this ball in play, that means the ball will strike the wall and then come someplace in this receiving area. The receiver must hit the ball either before it bounces once or before the second floor bounce. He then must hit the ball to the wall within the bounds. If he hits it outside, he has made a mistake, and that will be a point for the server. Only the server can score. Now assume that the server puts the ball in play and the receiver returns it legally and correctly, and then the server misses. Well, if the server misses, he loses the serve, and then the receiver becomes the server, and the first man who gets 21 points, he wins that game. Now, the strategy of one-wall singles is this. If the server is here, this is only one of many serving positions. I find this is the best serving position. Why? Because the receiver typically stands someplace between the 2 side lines. Therefore, if I serve right from here, my body will block the ball as I hit it to the wall behind my back. And since I have total control of that ball on the serve, I determine where I'm going to serve it, and I have a tremendous advantage because the receiver has no idea where that ball will go. So that's a powerful advantage to have, is to get that serve. So, using this as the first serving position, I recommend this. If the receiver is a right-hander, theoretically his left hand is somewhat weaker. So what I would want to do is serve the ball from this position, hit it to the wall someplace here, so that the rebound comes behind my back, someplace near the long line, near the receiver's left hand. And I found from experience that the brief moment that this ball is hidden from the receiver, I have a tremendous advantage. Now you may say, what should the receiver do if he is in this very poor position to return the ball? He should not try and hit the ball back quickly, because the server will quickly put the ball someplace else. What he should try and do is hit the ball high on the wall so he buys time in order to come forward and allowing him to get behind the server who's going to make the next shot. So, what did we do so far? So far, I've shown you serve number 1, which is probably one of the most important serves because it's hit to the receiver's weaker hand. Serve number 2, which I favor, is from the same position, and it's hit very low to the wall and slightly over the short line over here. What does that mean? It means the receiver has to run all the way in. He can't make an offensive shot most times. He can barely push the ball to the wall, and since he winds up over here, I take the next play and put it out of his reach. What can he try and do in moving in? If he gets there in time, he again should try and lift the ball over the server's head so he can get to the center court, which is fundamental in this game. So, this was serve number 1 behind the back. This was serve number 2 just over the short line. Guess where serve number 3 is from this position? Serve number 3 is also to the wall, just over the short line, over here. See what I've done? I didn't hit the serve in this no man's land, which allows the receiver to get to it. You either put the ball near the long line or just over the short line. Those are tremendous serves. On this next page, and I'll pay attention because I've given you 3 serves from this position. On the next page, I'm going to show you some additional serves from another position. That other position is over here by the left line. Remember, the receiver is still here. Now, because by being over here, you expose the entire court to the receiver's view. So even if you make an exceptional serve, he still sees what's going on. He studies the motion of your hand, and he's already moving into the position where you're going to hit it. But this serve becomes very important if the receiver has been able to return all your other serves. This serve becomes very important later on in the game when your opponent is somewhat tired and can't respond to the serve. So what happens from this position is this. You can either use an overhand serve straight down the line, and since he's tired, he's going to have to run over here, tire him even more. No matter where he returns that ball, you move in and hit it low over here, and he won't be able to get to it. Or from this position with an overhand serve again, you serve it high over here, right over the short line here, driving him off the court. If he's able to get it being tired, he has to return it someplace on the wall again, and you're in perfect position in order to put it any place you want. Now, this is only the world of theory. A lot can happen between what your notion is of a great serve and what your opponent's notion is of a great serve. Depending on the skills and physical fitness of this man or woman who plays the game, depending on his lateral motion or her lateral motion, these are all factors in what serve you will ultimately choose. Keep in mind, even from this position, you can also hit the ball high on the wall and put it way out here. So, the number 1 serve was over here from this position, the number 2 serve was over here from that position, and the number 3 serve is over here from that position. You have to figure out not just having the ability to make these serves, you have to figure out the appropriate time to use them. That's the key to this game. Remember I said early on, it's one thing to be in great condition, it's another thing to have only one powerful shot. What I'm trying to get you to think about is to work on a repertoire of shots so no matter who your opponent ultimately is, you'll be able to go into your bag of tricks, come up with the appropriate shot at the right time. So, I'm going to give you a moment's breather here because that was single strategy and using the serves. I'm going to give you a moment's breather before the double strategy. What I'm going to do now is just show you something of interest. They always ask me, is there any fun in handball? Well, in addition to many great people who have played this wonderful game, even Abe Lincoln, when he got his nomination, he was playing handball. It was called fives at that time because of the 5 fingers. He was in a back alley playing handball when he got news of his nomination. So if it was good enough for Abe Lincoln to play this game, it was good enough for Art Linkletter to play this game. There's a new movie out called Frankie and Johnny where Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer are playing this game. Brian Donlevy. When you get to the world of sports, many athletes have used handball during the winter season in order to stay in shape. The name comes to mind, Jim Bouton of the New York Yankees. He was a 4-wall player, and he developed a wonderful game. He had a hard pitch, and he had an even harder shot in 4-wall. Yeah, we have great golfers, Jack Nicklaus, who plays handball. So I know you're out there, all you sports figures, and all you professional jocks. I still make this challenge for you. If you think you're a hot shot in handball, I invite you down here to West 5th Street and Surf Avenue again, and I challenge you, no matter what professional sport you're in, to challenge this 57-year-old athlete, and I'll show you what sports really is. It's not riding a golf cart to each shot that you hit in golf. It's not just taking a small walk from the bowling foul line back to the seat after every shot. My friends, I want to tell you, handball is a game that if you're not in shape, you won't survive. You have to develop your brain in a sound body. You have to develop both hands, hand-eye coordination. Why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this because I want to share with you the pleasure and the treasure of this great game. Is there any comedy, any humor in it? Take a peek at some of these sports cartoons about handball. Of course, the first one is about me. It says, Ruby Obert, spokesman of handball. What I do theoretically is never sit, but for the purpose of this cartoon, here I am sitting, here are my home court, these are my walls, this is my home away from home. And anybody who comes down here will get a free handball lesson, and I'll show you how you can develop physically, how you can develop mentally, how you can develop emotionally. The second one has to do with Coney Island. It says, with the possible exception of that handball game in Coney Island, the entire planet was a bore. You see, that's a spaceship, and I don't have to explain that to you. Is there any more comedy here? Sure, I'll give you one more before we go on to the one-wall double strategy. This is a little scene in hell. It says, I'm happy to say our ratio of handball referees to general population remains high. The one on the bottom here shows a young man, perhaps like Noah will be in the future, and grant me good abstract reasoning, a high degree of socio-dynamic potential, and a serve to beat Alvarado. Okay, we're going to take the little break that we just did. Now we're going to go to the single strategy, which we did with the serves. Next will be double strategy. This is one-wall double strategy, and as I promised you in a little while, we're going to get to a little bit of the four-wall strategy. So here's the court again. Keeping in mind, here's the server. Under the rules of the game, his partner has to stand by this little notch. The partner cannot come on the court until the serve passes him. The two R's represent the receivers. Now, one of the important serves is to make these two players sort of converge, to get them confused. How do you do that? Assuming that they're both right-handed players, what you want to do is serve the ball in such a way that it comes right to the weak hand of this player on the right. Why? Because this player will want to come over thinking it's his shot. This player will react with his left hand, and then there'll be total confusion. Since the ball is way out here, no matter how they return it, this partner will come in, the server will be in good position, they'll be able to hit the ball in such a way to score the point. Keep in mind, as I mentioned before, every ball up the middle is the man on this side of the court shot, unless he says yours. As soon as the partner of the server comes on the court, and these men try and return that ball, the server then has to make a decision. What will he do with the next shot? Keep in mind, one of the most interesting strategies of doubles is that if you hit a ball in front of yourself and stand perfectly still, it's not a block, it's not a hinder or a replay. So as they return the ball to the wall, the server comes in and he either hits the ball in front of himself or he hits it in front of his partner. That's a wonderful strategy. It's probably the essence of the entire double strategy, and it's something that you should think about. That's serve number one, right back here between the two players. Serve number two could be a shot to the weaker man. In doubles, the man, if they're both right-handed players, the man over on this side is usually the weaker player. So what you want to do is capitalize on that. Your next serve may be right at his feet, pushing him back. Again, as you push him back, the same strategy applies on the return. So that's the double serve, the two powerful double serves. From this position here, if you can hit the ball behind your back and put it to the opposite hand of this man, either over to this point or just over the short line over here, you now have four powerful double serves. I don't want you to think about this and just dream about it. What you have to actually do is get out on the court, think about it on the court, see how it works against different opponents, and then take it from there. So that's the double strategy. Quickly, we can go to the double strategy of the other man serving, your partner serving from this side of the court. What are the strong serves there? The strong serves there are a cross-court serve over here to this man's left hand, that's number one. A shot right over here to the wall to the same position over here, that's number two. A low serve over here to get this fella to move in and push him off to this side of the court so the whole court will be open. And then a fourth serve, which is cross-court over here. Again, I don't want you to remember them all, but just have an idea that in no time is that ball served into no man's land in center court. It's either just over the short line or it's near the long line. So, since you know all that, what we can do is move quickly to four-wall singles. Remember I made you visualize a moment ago that you're in this room and here's your receiver over here. But keep in mind, there's a wall here, a wall here, a wall here, a wall here. You can hit the ceiling, and you can also hit the back wall. Now your opponent will be standing here. He can't be beyond the back wall. So if your receiver is here, here are the key serves in four-wall. Again, Serving over here, remember you're blocking with your body what he can see. So putting a shot over here, which comes near this side wall, that'll be number 1. Serving it just over the short line over here will be number 2. But now we're in the realm of 4 wall. We got to use those other surfaces. So here's a beautiful serve that I want you to think about. It's hitting the front wall, then it hits the side wall, then it hits the floor, bounces off the back, and comes over here to the weak hand of the receiver. Look what you've done. You've used the dynamics of the walls. Front wall, side wall, floor, back wall, and he will be driven slightly crazy in trying to follow the path of that ball. Isn't that beautiful? Using the same single strategy in 4 wall, you could serve from over here. And what do you think you can do from that position? You can hit it into this wall, front wall, side wall, so that the ball comes over here. As it hits this side wall again, it can come straight out, and your opponent will be completely delirious. He won't know what hit him. You can also use this position to hit it right over the short line over here, getting him again to move toward the side wall. He may be fearful of the side wall. You could use this position to hit it high on the wall over here, so that it bounces just about here and then floats right into the back wall, side wall over here. I showed you that before. This is merely a picture of how it looks on the chart. Again, we take a little bit of a break. We show you a little bit more of the humor in handball. And I like doing this because I was the one who put these cartoons together. And so I get a great deal of pleasure, as you know, writing poems about handball, writing articles about handball, and doing cartoons about handball. So refresh yourself for another brief moment as you look at this next cartoon. Shows a handball player right on one of the benches here. He probably maybe didn't even warm up, but look what's happened already. The doctor is examining him. He's very limp, and it says he appears to have lost all his enthusiasm for handball. Well, I hope that never happens to you. As I mentioned, I'm 57 years old. I've been playing over 54 years. I have just as much enthusiasm now as I ever did. There's so many joys and pleasures in this game. You meet people, you see different styles, you see different characteristics of people. It puts you in a competitive situation. It makes you use your brain. And when hopefully you do get a little fatigued after the game, you just sit down and reflect upon the glory on the court, and then those endorphins come into your bloodstream, and you get what's called a runner's high, but this is called a handball player's high. Such a remarkable way of going about your business, developing your body, developing your brain, and having all the joys and pleasures of life. So, getting back to our next cartoon, and Matthew is following us very nicely. Again, it's in a doctor's office. The doctor is looking at the handball player in the chair, and he says, "Being the world's greatest handball player made me a bit self-conscious at first, but I got used to it." I think this doctor is a doctor of psychoanalysis, and this guy has a problem with being, say, a megalomaniac unto himself. What do we say? He's solipsistic, and he's just near perfect, like me, and with a little modesty, I'd probably be even more perfect. That, of course, was another bit of jocularity which comes through when you play this game too long. Now, panning back to this next cartoon, this is a beautiful and one of my favorite. It shows a caveman and a cave woman, and he has a handball in his hand, and then she says to him, "If you don't stop carrying that ball, you will regress into a handball player." Handball has done that many times. We've come out as sportsmen, we've come out as socially balanced people, but under certain conditions, under certain cases, hopefully it won't be gambling. It brings out the worst in people, but we do our best here. We put a sign on the wall, no gambling, and then ultimately you will regress, not into a handball player being a caveman, but you will evolve into a finer person, being part of society, being kind to your fellow man. Handball has a way of doing that. It takes away all that energy of youth, and it sort of channels it into a more sociably acceptable way. We've had some pretty tough guys here. I took them under my wing, and through comedy and through jokes, like I've seen a better swing in a condemned playground, things like that. They came around, they started laughing, and then they became part of the group, which is absolutely great. This next one shows a wife talking to the husband who lives, breathes, thinks nothing but handball. She says to him, he's a legend out of his own mind. She says, Sports Illustrated called. He gets very happy about it until she said, would you be interested in home delivery? If that doesn't take the wind out of your sails and make you a better person, okay. We have only 3 more. I'm going to put that aside for the moment, and as I promised you, we're going to talk about the strategy of 4-wall doubles. Again, in 4-wall doubles, you have 2 men. One server is on this side, and his partner has to keep his back to the wall until the play begins. The receivers usually take a position somewhere equidistant from the walls, ready to cover all the possibilities of those serves. Keep in mind now that in doubles, you may use the same technique you did with the single serves, but what you have to do is concentrate on this aspect of doubles in 4-wall. Typically, the man on the right is usually the weaker player, so your strategy will be to try and get every shot over the hem. But that doesn't always apply. We've had some times where the man on the left tells his partner to get out of the way, he winds up playing every serve, dominates the entire court, and scores points and even wins. That happened to my brother and me in Cleveland in the national championship. We're playing the hometown team. It was full of Clevelanders, God bless their souls, but rightfully so, they were rooting for their home team. Well, we were serving this man over here. His partner told him to get out of the way. He ran all over the court, took every ball, and beat the heck out of us about 21-7. My brother was behind the door of this 4-wall court. There was only a little slit in the door. The Clevelanders were upstairs cheering their men on. And all we heard, my brother and I, was a little voice coming through the slit in the door, saying, come on, you can do it. It was my brother Carl. And that's the importance of cheering on your home team, even if there's only 3 of you. This is what happened. They started the second game. This man kept flying all over the court, playing every ball again, and they were ahead 14-7 in the second game for the national championship. At that juncture, I took a timeout to try and slow them down because the way they were going to beat us and take away our national championship. I opened up the back door, and there was one person standing there, as I told you, my brother Carl. He said, come on, you can do it. And I said to him, do what? And he said to me, just go in there and play. He didn't say, try this shot. He didn't say, you guys are bums, you don't know what you're doing. He knew the essence of cheering in a tight situation in a 4-wall game. You don't tell the person a specific shot, you just encourage them generally. As we were losing the first game and the second game, my brother Oscar didn't say to me, hey, get out of my way, you're a bum, you're screwing up the game. We had a rapport of brothers. That meant that we were in each other's hearts and minds. No matter whether we won or lost, we knew we were playing the game the way it was supposed to be played. Well, there's a happy ending to this story. The happy ending was this man who had run all around the court beating our pants off ultimately started to get tired. And I was serving from this position over here, hitting the ball over to this wall, trying to get him out of position so he couldn't take the whole court. I figured by serving him, he'd be trapped in the back. My brother Oscar could move on and then score the points. That didn't even work. But you know what happened? Because we had been through the crucible of hard, competitive matches in our past, we had the experience of many games. We went into our bag of tricks, and you know what came out of that bag of tricks? Knowing that this man continued to run in front of his partner to keep coming over here and dominating the court, what I did was I moved my serving position to right over here. And now he didn't know if I was going to serve it up the line over here near this wall to keep him over here, or whether or not I was going to do something else. This is the something else I did. It was just beautiful. I served the ball low, right over the short line.
He still had an opportunity to run over, but I had a hop on the ball. A hop means the ball all of a sudden spins in a different direction. It hit the floor. As he was running toward it, the ball angled into the wall, just like that. And as he was committed to that, he not only took his partner out of the play, he had difficulty in returning the ball to the wall. I was in this position to cover a weak return, and if he hit it to this side, my brother moved in, and you know what the result of that one serve was? Putting it over the line with a reverse, as it's called, into the wall. It completely discombobulated his brain waves. The players upstairs, the spectators upstairs were getting a little nervous. My brother Carl kept cheering through the little slit in the back door. As we gained the momentum, we won the second game. As we won the second game, we took a 14-6 lead in the third game. My brother Carl kept cheering, and the whole gallery in one clamorous voice said, "Tell that guy to shut up." Now that was unbelievable. But you know what? It told my brother and me that we had him where we wanted him. We continued on with our strategy. We were in superior condition. This man who took every shot now tired out, and we went on to win that match. So the four-wall double strategy is where to put the ball and then what to do with it after your opponent either receives it and returns it correctly or incorrectly. Now, what do you think you have to do if you have the same four-wall situation and now you have to serve from this spot? And now your partner has to stay in the little serving box over here. The receivers, of course, are over here again. Now you think of all the beautiful possibilities of this game. Again, it's almost like the dynamics of billiards or pocket pool, where you have to know what that ball will do, how it will respond off the cushion. Handball is like that. So serving from this side, you can hit front wall, it hits off the side wall. You see it's past this line, but now we know there's a side wall here, and it moves in this direction, causing confusion. Okay? I showed you the shot already where you serve it up short like this with a hook over here. You can take this position in serving, put it behind your back, so with another type of hook, it straightens out and parallels the side wall rather than going into the wall as the opponent may think. All this seems like a lot of stuff, but if you have this in front of yourself, and if you have a VCR, and you're able to tape this, and then at your leisure, slow it down, take notes, get in touch with me. I'm down here all the time. I will be happy to give you copies of this. I'll be happy to explain it in detail. I'll do all those wonderful things for you. Why? Because handball's always been good to me and my brothers. I mentioned to you that I got my first job in a trust department. I mentioned to you that because I had that job, I was able to continue my education. I got a master's degree. I qualified for a PhD in finance. I moved all around the country. I put on seminars in the exotic field of estate planning, pension planning, and the like. All this through handball. I met my wife on the handball court. I have two beautiful daughters. They also are in sports, excellent players. And I think we live under some sort of a wonderful, beautiful star. I was able to do all these things and be here with you today. My daughter Erica won the Ford Modeling Agency Supermodel of the World contest of the New York area, 2,000 girls. She's as beautiful on the court as she is off the court, a wonderful personality as the rest of my family is. Why do I tell you that? Because that completes the joy in life that I have. Through sports, through work, through education, through family, through meeting a wonderful man like Matthew Paris, his taking the time to be with us here today to film this. We want to share all this with you. So in closing, I'm going to show you the last couple of cartoons. This one is probably one very familiar to a lot of you. You're at your local pub having a good time. The bartender, of course, is very reflective and is the local psychologist who listens rather well. And the handball player is saying, "I eat handball and I sleep handball, but I never drink handball." And again, back to hell. And believe me, the game of handball only gives you heaven but there's other aspects philosophically that we have to contend with. This one shows a couple of devils in hell, and one says to the other, I don't get it. Why can't handball champs come here too, instead of just the referees? Talking about referees is a story in itself. We're going to save some of that for the future segments of this. I'd just like to continue in closing out with these other cartoons. You've seen this guy too. He's been out drinking up with the boys. He comes home, the wife is there, it's a late hour in the morning, and he says, in all good spirit, he says this, some of the guys and me were watching handball greats on the old VCR. I think the next panel of this cartoon shows a surgeon trying to remove a rolling pin from his head. This is a beauty and one of my favorites. Sometimes you get the opinion that if you get into handball and you become a champion too early in your life, that's the be-all and end-all of your life. You sort of believe the press reviews and the clippings, and you think that you've got it made. But you're going to find out, much to your regret, after, say, you graduate high school. There's a big world out there. You have to prepare yourself with it. So what you have to do is study as best you can, get your brain in shape, so after your handball days on that level are over, you'll have something to fall back on. Too many handball champions become part of a cult where they do indeed believe that they are the epitome, the paragon of athletic prowess. This is not true. Life is a big world. There's a lot of competition out there. EC 92 is going to prove that. Germany's going to be a superpower along with Japan because of their more efficient methods of doing business, their more efficient work ethic habits. They get up in the morning, they get to the factory, they sing a patriotic song, and they work 16 hours a day so that they can do what they can for their family, to provide some sort of nourishment, some sort of culture through travel. That's what this competitive society is all about. This is what we in America have to think about more too. Just to digress from that point. So you better get your act together. You better stay in school as long as you can. Athletics is a wonderful part of it, but that's only after you did your work, your study plans and everything else. If you do that, then you'll be a better person, equipped with a sound mind and a sound body to face the future no matter what it is. So, getting back to this cartoon, which is one of my favorites, it shows a handball champion at a job review. Here's the man of personnel speaking to him. And he comes in with a big trophy, first place of handball. And he thinks he's got the world in the palm of his hand based on what he's done in the handball world. And the personnel director looks him right in the eye, and notice the smile on this guy's face. That's the tragedy it is. The personnel director says to him, do you have any other qualifications? No. Well, my friends out there, you better have some other qualifications. Handball is a wonderful, glorious game. It'll give you a wonderful, magnificent physique. But if you don't do your studying, you don't do your reading, if you don't pursue a cultural background, whatever culture you're from, think about your forebears, think about their history, think about their music, think about anything that sparkles about where you came from. Put that into the context of this great country which allows you to, what I say, actualize your potentiality. Now, ending up, here this fella's having a little pipe dream. He's having a little illusion there. Somebody's appearing just like they did to Scrooge in Christmas Carol. And he says to this guy who's in sort of a semi-comatose state and sleep, he says, I am the ghost of handball past, and you were a lousy player. And finally, I ended one, as I did at the beginning, being the spokesman for handball, as I showed you in the first cartoon. I'm ending with this last cartoon. It was a tribute for the 11 years of handball clinics I put on for the New York City high schools. I'm part of a committee with the New York Sports Alliance that's going to build a Brooklyn sports complex right here in my backyard. I don't know if it had anything to do with the glorious work that I've been engaged in, telling anybody and everybody about handball. My oldest student is standing right next to the camera. His name is Lou Moore, 72 years old. He's a wonderful guy.
I'll never see 72.
He said he could never play handball. I said he could, and now he's having fun in the game. So, in conclusion, they give me this great dinner. And as you can see the sign there, it says a tribute to Ruby Obert. But as you can also see that many of the tables are empty. And the caption is, "It's not that you're not beloved, Ruby, it's the economy." So, ending on that pleasant note, because my own personal feeling is, even though the Cassandras out in the economic world are predicting doom, and even though the economic pundits are saying we're bouncing along the bottom, my friends, I want you to have faith. I want you to have faith in the natural resilience of the American economy. When things seem bad, all of a sudden things pick up out of nowhere. People do indeed get back to work. I don't suspect that it may have something to do with the 1992 election, where just in time the economy is going to be bubbling. I don't think it will have anything to do with the economic community of Europe taking focus in 1992. I don't think it'll have anything to do with the triad that is now being put together between the superpower financial power of Japan, the super financial power of Germany, and least but not last, I say least but not last, the greatest country in the world, which allows a fellow like me to be before you, sharing with you something called leisure time. If you work hard and you save some money, someday too you will be able to share the extraordinary pleasure and treasure not only of Coney Island, but also of the vast world of handball all around the United States. Keep in mind, we have world championships every 4 years between the United States, Australia, Canada, Mexico, Ireland. We also have some other plans in the works. When the sports complex is completed here in Brooklyn, you're going to see handball take off the launching pad, and it'll become a household word, which it richly deserves. So signing off for our great friend Matthew Paris, this is Ruby Obert. Until next time, where I hope to share even more of this treasure.